Hi, YouTube. Okay, and Instagram too. Okay. Whew. It's always like when I'm just going live on YouTube and Instagram at the same time, it's like a race to try to get both channels to sync up and go live at the same time. So anyway, I'm super, super excited to be here live to talk with you guys. So what came through for me to come on and talk about was expansion. I was just talking, I had put in my stories today on Instagram, these two beautiful new crystals I just got. I don't know if you can see this on YouTube, but on Instagram, maybe you can. This big desert rose selenite and the big blue calcite here. And they're big, beautiful crystals. And as hi, Katie. And Katie was saying, these happy Wednesday to you too, my good friend. So these are definitely investment pieces. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk with you guys about is, yeah, they are. And not too long ago, there is no way in the world I would have been spending money on crystals for myself. I would have seen them as an extravagance, as something extra. A year ago, I was trying to, not coupon necessarily, that was years earlier, but I was trying to budget. I was trying to be good, follow the rules, fit myself into this world. And it was hard. It was awkward. I never fit. I never really made sense in this world. And so I always felt left out. I always felt like I wasn't doing it right or there was something wrong with me. And that is really the process of contraction. It's the process of being in fear. It's the process of believing that there's not more to experience or to have. And expansion is really all about trusting that you are being led somewhere for a reason, trusting that you have an inner guidance system that you can tap into, and it will guide you to the most beautiful, most wonderful experiences. And expansion, though, is not always neat and clean, especially when you're first stepping into it, especially when you are first stepping into trust. It is often very messy, feels terrifying because it feels so different than everything you've experienced before. What you've experienced before is probably very similar to me, trying to fit yourself like a square peg into a round hole. And that's not any good either, but at least it feels safe. And so we're used to that. We're used to those feelings of not being good enough and not feeling worthy of the things that we actually want, that we actually desire. So I wanted to share with you guys a few of my expansive experiences over the last year and a half, really. Well, of course, the first one was publishing One Truth, One Law. That was the first time I really stepped out and trusted my guidance to do something that terrified me. I was so afraid to do this because I was telling everyone in the world that you are all God, which to me was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be invited to Christmas dinner anymore. People are going to think I'm literally insane. And I often wondered myself if I might have been insane. But I know I'm actually not, though. I know I'm actually, I actually see through everything, but that's another story. So that was my first expansive experience, and it was so scary. I was so happy Wednesday to you too, Ren. Thank you. So I had to really undo this programming that led me to think that it wasn't safe for me to publish my book, to share my truth, which was essentially to follow my guidance. And that was definitely a process. And I thought when I published One Truth, One Law, I was like, this is what my guidance has been telling me to do for 8 years. So if I do it, then that's it. Millions of people are going to read it right away. I mean, I really thought that when I published it, I would sell 1 million books the first day. I was like, this is going to be perfect. I'm finally doing it. And lo and behold, I put it up for sale in crickets. Nobody bought it. My parents bought a copy and they didn't disown me, which was beautiful, but nobody knew it existed. And I was like, oh no, maybe was my guidance wrong? I'm like, what's going on? And so this was the first time I really understood that initial guidance was just the first step on a long journey, a long path of more experiences, that our life path truly is a path. It's not one thing where we do it and then everything's like roses and beautiful forever. It's a constant trust exercise. But sorry, I forgot to silence my phone, so it's beeping. You guys probably can't hear me, but I'm doing my best. But hi, Candy Apple. Much love and gratitude to you as well, my friend. So it's this constant kind of, I describe it as a circle. Getting your guidance, trusting it enough to take action on it, then asking for more guidance, then taking action on that. And the more you do it, the more your momentum builds, the more your manifestations come to you faster, the more everything just starts. So anyway, I kept going, even though nobody was buying my book and nobody had ever heard of it, and I had no following and no audience and no idea what I was doing. I said, okay. And I just I believed in it. I knew it was the truth. And so I kept doing the things that it said in my book to do. And I followed it and I said, okay, well, I really wanted just to instantly manifest. Somebody asked me the other day, they said, well, Erin, how can you just tell me how to instantly manifest instead of building your knowing? I don't have time to build my knowing. I just want to do it right away. And that's beautiful. But I'd like to do that too. But holy cow, following this process of building my knowing has been incredible. And honestly, now that I kind of know how to do that, I probably wouldn't pick the instant manifesting way, because this is so much more interesting. It is so exciting. It is so freaking awesome it really is this process of building trust, building this trust that you're always supported. And so that was the first thing I did, was I published the book. Then a few months later, I think it was May now, and I had been building my knowing and doing all these things I was guided to do, and the book was selling a little bit. And I think we were making about $1,000 a month. I say me, that's, my family, Phil and I, from the book. And Phil was a nurse, and I stayed at home with our 2 children. And I said, okay, I didn't, at this point, I was like, I'm going to keep doing it because I know I'm supposed to. And I feel that this is what's desperately trying to come out of me. And my guidance was just keep going, keep going, keep going. And one morning I woke up and I was told, today Phil quits his job. And I said, what? No, Phil doesn't quit his job today. What are you talking about? Phil quits his job today, and you're going to create this online course called Unlimited You, which I did. And so anyway, I told Phil, I said, Phil, yes, Ren, the knowing is so worth it. It really is. So I told Phil, I.M. says that you're going to quit your job today. And he's like, what? Because we had at the time, I don't know, my son was probably a few months, or no, last year. So he was about a year, and my daughter was about 3 years old. And I was like, oh my God, we were terrified, but we also knew by this time what happens when we don't follow our guidance is we're just led on a series of experiences that don't feel very good or very enjoyable until we finally learn the lesson that we should have just followed the guidance in the first place. So this has already happened to us enough times over the previous 8 or 9 years where we're like, all right, well, if the guidance is loud and clear and with 100% knowing that this is the action we need to take today, then I guess we're going to take it. So he called his boss, and he hadn't, things had been going bad at his job anyway. So this wasn't something that's like, he didn't want to do. He would have loved to do it. We just didn't feel financially comfortable doing it. But he called his boss and he quit. And that felt really good and exciting for about a day. And then the terror just set in, like, oh God. So I went back to the principles in the book. I started creating in my mind that this was beautiful. It was a beautiful thing that he didn't have to work anymore and that my business made plenty of money. And within about 2 weeks, the income from One Truth, One Law was now more than he had ever made as a nurse. And that is when my book took off. That was that point, that decision, that one act of trust. Now, this wasn't us saying, Phil doesn't want to work anymore, he's just going to quit. We've done that in the past, much, much earlier in our relationship. That doesn't work either, because if it's not coming from your inner guidance, if it's just coming from, I don't want to do this anymore, that's not necessarily, hi Robert, welcome. That's not necessarily going to work either. This was specific action taken from very specific guidance, and it just caused this massive expansion for us in our personal life and for One Truth, One Law. It was like I was following the steps in the book. And so the book was like, yes, you're ready now to bring this to more people. And so this has happened over and over and over again over the last year and a half since I followed my initial guidance that took me so long to wrap my head around. The expansion, the guidance to do these specific actions. People often ask me, Erin, how can I get specific guidance that's for me? Or even if you're a very intuitive person, maybe you get specific guidance for clients or friends or family, but specific guidance for you is hard to get. The reason for that is really, really simple. It's because you have rejected your initial guidance, your next step, your first step, and said, no, that's not going to work for me because of this, 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 or this, or I can't do this because of all these limiting beliefs that have been programmed into you. And so until you recognize what that initial guidance is, and even though it's so easy for me to say now, looking at my book, my guidance was always to publish the book, I was pushing that knowing away. I am told us that it was in the transcripts. I had read the transcripts many times, but every time I read it, I just kind of sort of glossed over it. I was like, that's crazy. How would that ever do anything for me? Why am I going to do that? I'm trying to manifest abundance over here. I'm not trying to have everybody think I'm a crazy person. So it's that guidance that came in simple and clear for you probably many years ago that you have pushed away, that is blocking you getting more specific guidance. Always given that first step. But we often say, you be quiet. I don't like you. You sound really scary. And so then you can't get the next step because you've rejected the first step. You have to ask again, what do I have to do to expand? What's my next step? How do I step onto my life path? How do I step onto my purpose? And it will come to you. And so much of it is just not only understanding intellectually that we really are God at our core and that we can communicate with our God self, but it's actually then doing that communication. Because it's not just, everything isn't going to fall into place in your life from reading books or from watching documentaries or from taking courses. It's really implementing the things that other people that are further along their life path are saying that they used. So me and millions of other people that are intuitive and have taken action on their guidance and have built something through that. And that's all kinds of people. Like my father was just telling me this story about the person who brought Monopoly to market. And he wasn't the original creator. He was somebody that saw it and was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And he was rejected for years. He kept redesigning it. He was so focused in on knowing that this was going to be big. And he literally created that. He created everybody still buying Monopoly, 80, 90 years later. And he kept at it for years because inside of him there was this huge drive to make Monopoly the most celebrated game ever. And that is exactly what he created. So I hope this has been helpful. So again, that first time, it took me 8 or 9 years to take that first step. The next time, it took me a few months. Then it took me about a day. Now, when I get my guidance, I know right away, oh, okay, I'm doing this. This is happening. Okay. And it's happening really fast. And I just do it. But that's because I have built my knowing that this guidance is always supporting me. It is always catching me. It's always going to lead me in the right direction. But it wasn't perfect in the beginning. And even still today, like, my guidance is to call in these giant crystals, which means putting out my energy, my money, to bring them into me, which to me is still coming back now to what I was talking about in the beginning. It still makes me a little like, and I have to come back to creating my reality, which is, whatever money I put out to the world, more comes back to me. It is safe to follow my guidance, even if my guidance is to spend money or to have Phil quit his job. Whatever it is, I'm going to be supported. And the more we go deep, deep, deep with our guidance and our trust enough to actually take action, because so many people, and me for years too, heard that guidance and talked about it, but didn't take action because the action is scary. But that action is where all that expansion really is. That is it. And that is where you embody. Because knowing intellectually is not the same thing as embodying. Embodying is becoming the person that you dream of being, that you feel might possibly be possible for you. It definitely is possible for you. Listen, if I could get to this point, you can too. Because I was starting off with an awful lot of self-doubt. And I have created myself into something much bigger and better than I ever could have imagined back then. But it's a process. And so I hope this is helpful for you guys. I know at least somebody on here was ready for this message today. So, and thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you guys for spending a few minutes with me. I love you. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon.